Yeah.
Yeah. That's absurd.
What'd you say? 94 saves and 95 shots.
Through 5 overtime periods.
It's unreal.
Like, do you just collapse when you're done? Like, you must be absolutely gassed.
Everyone out there is just like...
When I worked for the Bruins, I think it was one of the years they went into quadruple overtime. Yeah, something like that. To like 3 a.m. that one night. It was like so
I figured we would get more this year.
no. God. That's why.
Sorry. I think Monica's is like if you wanted to.
I also think Bananas is a good job.
Was when I went last Sunday. The line was like a little bit around the other day.
You know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking rice. When in doubt,
Did you hear about? I mean, Travis.
So Travis and I both said that this isn't gonna affect our patronage, but Brandon did find a very long hair. So.
you can't tell me that.
But Travis and I both agree that's not going to deter us from coming.
I might just get straight so much that way.
That's disgusting. What about the Bruins sandwich that was everyone to get?
Everyone. Two people. And conversation is gone.
What did you say? Oh no, yeah, I was scary for a while.
I know you don't like clowns. That's why I said that. We should start doing like instead of clips. In the morning we should have read the clips to like G2. Like just go up here and just like announce them. Today's news. Brought to you by Chinese
Literally, that's what
I feel like that's what there you go.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. We'll start with opening statements by both Don and Bruce, and then we'll move into question and answer. Don?
Well, thanks, everybody. Congrats to the Celts last night for moving on, and we'll be eagerly cheering them on as they go through the conference finals. You know, for our hockey club, I think that Bruce and the coaching staff, the whole group set the bar for our club right from day one in training camp and as to what they wanted to try and accomplish, the expectations of how we were going to play each and every night. And we certainly had some adversity early on with some injuries and some challenges as some integration of the younger players. But once we found our footing, I thought the group responded really well. And we clearly had a good stretch in the middle of the season. We sort of maybe even reset the bar a little bit for ourselves to understand that what we're potentially capable of achieving. We got ourselves in a very strong position. We added some players that we felt would strengthen our hockey club in some areas that we felt we could use little additions. And we went into the postseason. We had a very difficult stretch in March. We knew that. We tried to address that through some of the depth with the acknowledgement that we were going to be able to maybe spread some minutes around. We utilized the backup goaltending and situation very well. So we were cognizant of some of the challenges I think that were going to be presented coming down the stretch. You know, injuries are always an unknown as to what you're going to face, and certainly we had some guys that did get dinged up there in March, and we were fortunate they were able to come back in the start of the playoffs. And we were a confident group. We had a series against a team that we openly acknowledged would be a very stern test. Would we like to have maybe finished it off? Probably early on and benefited from the rest. Who knows? Did Tampa benefit? Who knows? I just think that we knew and we respected our opponent, and they took it to 7, and we had a dramatic victory there and a quick turnaround. We had a disappointing finish because of a lot of the reasons why I just explained. That we had set the bar for ourselves. Our coaching staff had done a really good job. We felt we were a team that was prepared every night. A resilient group that came back, and we just didn't find a way to elevate when we needed to at the most. And you give Tampa all the credit in the world. They deserve to move on. They beat us over the course of a series and did maybe some of the smaller things that I think that we had pointed out with our hockey club had done very well in the course of the year. So it's a steep learning curve for guys when you have the opportunity to get there and move on. You have to value the fact that you just might not get back again. I know a couple of my former teammates in the room here will acknowledge that it's sometimes hard. You know, you think you have a team that can get there. You want to take a swing at it. You're excited about it, and all of a sudden it's gone. And then you're right back down to the bottom of the hill again, staring at the same hill you just tried to climb. And that'll be the challenge for our group going forward to recognize that through the course of this summer that, you know, the work that you just did, learn from it, benefit from it, but you better be prepared for the next challenge ahead.
Thanks, Don. Bruce?
Yeah, from a coach's perspective, we finished last year as a playoff team, lost to Ottawa in the first round, and we wanted to build from that. I think that was the message to the players as they left their exit meetings last year, is that we found our way back into the playoffs. So now, once you're in, you're a Stanley Cup contender, and we wanted to build off that, and we, you know, decided and talk to the players about creating healthy competition in our lineup. And I think we you know, as Donnie pointed out, we went into the summer with the plan of being younger and faster and building around our core, or adding to our core with younger group. And I felt we did that this year. We allowed these players the opportunity to be Boston Bruins, and I think some of them certainly met expectations, and some went beyond that with our younger group. I think it made us a better team, harder to play against. Some of the identity pieces that we wanted to be. We wanted to get back to being a dominant home team. I felt we did that during the year. And obviously playing well on the road. And then the bar was set that most teams, if you can get to 100 points, you're going to be in the playoffs. So clearly that's a goal that we had in mind to get to, and we exceeded that. So those are the positives during the season. And we had some adversity early on, and I thought our guys battled through that. That's a credit to the veteran players in the room, and a credit to the young guys for stepping up and being able to handle that limelight and the challenge in front of them. So from there, you're into the playoffs, and again, Toronto series, as Donnie said, when you're up 3-1, the quicker you can close out a team, the better off it is. Did that affect us in the next round? Those are always good conversations to have, because you'll never know. But the Game 7 experience we got, the win, I think was good for our group. So that's a positive. And with you guys, you know, we try to dwell on or focus on the positives and build on the things we need to do going forward. So if we're in that position again, then we've got to be mindful of it to close out teams. I think Tampa did that well. and give them credit. At the end of the day, that it didn't go our way in the playoff series. I think there's a number of reasons for that. I'm sure some questions will come up, and we'll deal with that. But they played their game better than we played ours, and they're advancing. So I wish them luck. They're a good hockey club. And I think the message going out the door with our players yesterday a lot was, like last year, is like, it's not automatic you get back there. You can look around the league this year and look at Edmonton, Montreal, the Rangers. We can go through some teams. So we have to put the work in this summer to prepare to be a playoff team again next year. And then once we get there, then the idea is to go farther and learn from the experience this year. And that's our goal going forward, simply put. And that's about it in terms of the season wrap-up.
Great, thank you. We'll take questions. Just wait for the microphone to get to you, please, before you ask. Steve and Steve. Steve Buckley, you can go first.
Don, actually, both of you. Brad Marchand spoke yesterday. He was obviously very contrite about what happened during the playoffs. So my question for both of you is, how much communication have you had with him since then? What are your expectations for next season?
Well, maybe this will indict me, but I've certainly spent a long time with Brad. I've been part of this organization for a long time, and numerous conversations about him individually as a player, on and off the ice. Yesterday was eye-opening for me that, I think this one's hit a lot harder than some of the other things that have come his way. I think he realizes the impact. We spoke a little bit about his family and how it reflects really on him as a person, more so than him as a player. I think he has gained a tremendous amount of respect around the National Hockey League, worldwide, as a matter of fact, is for him as a player. And I think that's where the attention needs to be 100% focused on his impact as a hockey player, people that have spent time around him as a leader of our hockey club. And the things that he does to take away from that, really don't need to exist anymore. And it'll be up to him. The proof will be in whether or not he can, find that line and never really cross it anymore, because he doesn't need to. He's accomplished the things as a hockey player, and now hopefully he wants to accomplish the things as a leader and a quality person, and he was honest about it.
I'm sorry, wouldn't you say that he has sapped that reservoir of goodwill, though, to a great extent?
Well,
Talking about him being a world-class citizen and so on.
pardon me, I don't.
I'm sorry, but whatever reputation that you speak of, wouldn't you say that he's damaged that significantly over the last couple of weeks?
As a hockey player?
Yes.
No. As a hockey player, I think that anybody in the league, and anybody that spent time around the league, would probably understand that. Anybody would acknowledge that Brad is a really good hockey player, and you would want him on your team. You also want him to lose the stuff that takes away from him being a good hockey player. And that's the specific thing that I referenced in terms of Brad. And I hope that he can do that. We're going to help him. We've put people around him, hopefully, that can continue to help him. His teammates are willing to help him. But it really falls on the person himself to hopefully, continue to effectuate the change that we all hope that he can do.
Well, Brad's an elite hockey player in the National Hockey League. So when I have conversations with him, it always starts there. And then it goes to, well, what do you want your legacy to be? And and he's at a stage in his life and a maturity level where I think he understands, he truly gets that he doesn't need the other stuff to make him an elite player, to continue to be an elite player. I think he believes that. There's a certain level of Brad that has to be out there for him to perform the way he does. He likes certain challenges, and do a lot of players in this league. And those are the ones that we have to focus on without crossing the line. So the licking, is that crossing the line? Apparently it is. So we've talked about that. And I think Brad is ready to do that. And we have his back. We always will. And as Donnie said, there are people around him, including his coach, his teammates. As he said it the other day, we love what Brad brings on the ice, and that's what we want to be focused on. And that's what having discussions with him. He does have a family now, and that's part of it as well. There's a certain level that of behavior he needs to get to, and he's admitted it. So that's where we're going with Brad, and we want him to keep being that excellent hockey player he is, without some of the other stuff. And we're going to work with him to do that, and that's it. Period, going forward. But again, he's acknowledged it. That's step one. We're here to help him. That's step two, and let's get after it. And it's a day-by-day process, and we'll see next year once he gets on the ice where it goes.
Don, there's turnover every year, but where do you stand in what you're thinking on signing some of your free agents? namely the two Nashes and Hudobin?
Well, obviously our team accomplished a lot to get to the 112-point level. So ideally, you'd like to bring everybody back and think you take another run at it. I don't think that's realistic in a cap environment. We can afford the salaries they're currently at, but some of the guys had very good years, and you expect that to change. So I've had discussions periodically with some of those players, and we'll have with their representatives going forward here in the next month or so, in a couple weeks. But I don't have clarity on any of the players at this point in time that are in the UFA status. But we're going to seek clarity, and we've got some players that we think internally will continue to push and carve out roles, and we'll see how we piece the jigsaw puzzle back together. But all great contributors, and in an ideal world, you'd like to entertain bringing them back, but I don't know if that's realistic today.
Is there anyone that you told that won't be back?
Nope. We haven't definitively ruled anybody out. Just, we're going through the whole pieces. We're going to sit with the coaches, and we're just going to go back over, where we need to go and the improvements we need to make, and be target specific in the areas that we can do so.
Kevin, and then Joey.
Don, I've got a question on Backus, but I just want to revisit the Marchand thing. He was contrite yesterday and remorseful. I'm wondering, between you, Cam, maybe Mr. Jacobs, did anybody make it clear to him it's time?
Oh, make no mistake that we've not condoned Brad's actions in those regards, nor have we defended them. We've always told him that it's unnecessary. Whether or not he can continue, as he mentioned yesterday, and just stop, that's to be determined. We hope that he can. We're going to put those things in place that'll allow him to hopefully learn and benefit from. He's at different stages of his life as he's gone through some of this stuff. We've had discussions with him outside of physically sitting him down and sitting him out. The league's tried that as well. So, and they'll continue to do it. They brought the hammer down harder when he's crossed the line. But as a hockey player and helping our hockey club, he's a damn good hockey player. And that's what we want him to focus on. The priorities I talked to him yesterday were nothing other than, as a hockey player, winning, and your family. And those are, to me, not necessarily always in that order, but that's what I'd like him to see him focus on. The other stuff he doesn't need. He doesn't need to draw the attention to himself.
And on Backus, he said yesterday he thinks he suffered a concussion on the last hit that sent him out. That's at least his second here, he said. He thinks he's had 6 or 7 of these. At this stage of the game, have you got a heightened concern here, given just the concussions themselves, the CTE discussion, all of it?
Well, the protocols that the league and us follow are strict, and we're not going to deviate from them. Every player is different, every situation is different, and we make sure that the health of the player is paramount. We had other players that even if they were thought to have them, that we went and we'd err on the side of caution, and David will be no different. Obviously, we have a long period of time before he'll be put back into full skating and testing environment, but he'll have to go through the periodic steps that it takes to make sure that he's 100% healthy and before he's playing hockey. He felt better yesterday. Hopefully he continues to feel better tomorrow and move forward at that. It's always a concern. The health is always a concern. If it has repeated as the same knee injury or the hip injury and such, that you're always going to be concerned for your players from the standpoint. And we have to provide the best medical care we possibly can.
Coach, we've talked a lot about the younger guys and what they learned from their first seasons and what they need to do to prepare this offseason. What's your process going to be like this offseason to prepare for next?
Well, obviously we'll sit down and look at the pieces of our, for our roster with Donnie. That's step one generally at the end of the year, and go through where we needed to be better to beat Tampa Bay and to continue to play. From there, we'll always look at our systems. Are we current? Or does it fit our personnel? We went through that last year with our neutral zone. We thought we need to play faster. After talking to players, eliminate plays quicker, and I thought we did a real good job with that this year. It led to a lot of transition for us. It led to a harder team to play against. That's where a guy like Grzelcyk came in handy for us. So that's the second thing we'll do is look at our systems. Are we playing the right way with the people we have to have the most success? And I thought we did a lot of that this year. We'll look at our D zone now. Are we playing fast enough in D zone? We've had a certain layer mentality for years. A lot of teams are man-to-man. I like the layers, but maybe we need to tweak that so that we can close on plays quicker to help our center icemen. So that was an area of discussion with the coaches. So that's the process for us in general. Is our system the best one for the most success for the Bruins with the players we anticipate having? And after that, Joe, you get away from the game for a while, enjoy your family and a little bit of clear your head, and then come back ready to go. And that's generally what coaches go through. There were clinics through the summer that we attend at the draft. You get ideas, and you sit down with the staff, and again, that's a little bit of brainstorming as well, and see what you can come up with. But for the most part, that's our process, if that's what you're asking in general.
Mike.
Hey, Bruce. You're building up your playoff coaching resume now. I mean, do you see yourself as still learning in playoffs? I mean, are you thinking like, okay, next time we get back, I'll do X instead of Y?
Absolutely. I look back at this series as recently as we lose on. We had a day of travel and a Sunday game at 3:00. What was the best use of that day? Should we have practiced? Should we not? Should the players, do they need the rest more important? Was there something in there that we need to do? And you start working backwards. What do you say between periods? What do you say going into that overtime in game 4 after, we kind of let a lead get away? There was a call there we thought could have went our way. How do you get the players back? There's always things you look back on. What can you do better? I look at the Toronto game going into that game into the third period. I thought we handled that situation well. We were behind, and we got the guys refocused, and we came out and played a hell of a period to get to the next round. So there's a lot of different things. After game 5, we're up 3-1 against Toronto. What could we have done differently to close out that series at home in that game? Now, there's a lot of things that are outside of the coach's control. The players go out and play, and calls are made or not made, et cetera, but there's always things we'll look back at. I thought it was a great learning experience for me to be in a Game 7 and come through on the right side of it. Great learning experience to get behind and not come through against Tampa. So those are things we're going to reevaluate.
Fluta.
Don, your goaltending plan got a little bit disrupted with losing Malcolm. Zane, the season he's had and his pedigree so far in the American League, do you think he's ready to make the jump to be NHL backup next year?
Well, I thought Anton did a really good job this year. You're correct that we felt that Malcolm was on the cusp of breaking through. Zane had pushed the previous year. He had an up and down year this year. Had some real good pockets of games where he was excellent, and other games where he just, some of the situations he didn't necessarily rise up to. He's in the mix, certainly, to push for our group. We're exploring bringing Anton back and see if that might work. If not, we may have to go to an alternative. Daniel Vladar was around, played a lot more games this year. He will be in Providence next year as part of the development process for him. Kaiser came in at the end of the year as well, had a good year. He's part of it. And Jeremy Swayman also had a very good year at Maine and took over the starting role there. So we feel like we're starting to make sure we address it appropriately, and hopefully one of these guys emerges as the next number one for the Boston Bruins. But it's an area that we have to make sure that we're spot on. And so we'll be looking at it again this summer, and it starts with where our talks with Anton go.
Kevin?
Don, the template going forward from last summer, and it worked well, was going mostly with kids, being very light in the free agent market on July 1. Do you stick to that template now? Maybe light in the UFA, more kids in, and what are the prospects of maybe an impact trade this summer?
Well, we're certainly going to explore everything, Kevin. We've got meetings we're going to go through from a coaching standpoint, pro meetings coming up. So we're going to put everything on the table and continue to explore any of the areas that we think we can improve our hockey club. It's also exploring bringing back some of the guys that we felt were really good fits for our club, and some of them are pending UFAs. From a adding, more sort of younger players or continue to add younger players, the player themselves generally dictate whether or not they're ready. And we'll have other players that will want to knock on the door, and whether or not they're able to is no different than Jake this year. We told him the opportunity to make our hockey club would be there, but it wasn't given to him. And Ryan Donato won't be given to him. And Anders Bjork coming back healthy, it won't be given to him. They'll determine whether or not where they play in Bruce's lineup. And if they don't, then where they'll play in Jay's lineup. So that's always been its performance. That's just the business. But we're committed to them. They've all heard, and the younger players in Providence and even a Jack Stanika, they've all heard that if they're good enough, they get an opportunity to play and develop. And then, it's a matter of whether we can blend things together as we felt we needed to add for a playoff push that, you probably can't win just with completely a lineup riddled with younger guys that have never been through a Game 7 or situations. So we're cognizant of it, and we'll explore every avenue, whether that's a trade or whatever it may be.
Fluto, and then Joe, and then Mike.
Don, obviously losing Carlo really hurt your second pair, but the two straight series where a second line did pretty well against you guys. Can you, from your perspective, was that kind of a big picture concern, or do you think there was circumstances? What is your take on why that happened?
You're 100% correct in Brandon. That's 2 years in a row that we haven't utilized Brandon. His size, his ability to cover ice, his ability to kill plays, still emerging offensively, but he's able to transition pucks and transport pucks effectively. You see the Toronto players and how fast their forward group was, and certainly in the Tampa forwards and the pressure they put on our D. I think we missed them. It's nothing against the players. I thought our D corps as a group did a very good job, but injuries are a part of it, and the attrition is what it is in terms of the playoffs. So you have to be prepared for it. It's Nick Holden jumping in Game 5 and playing well, so you have to have it. As far as a strict matchup of the other team's second line, that line played well enough to be a first line in most teams, and I think they felt comfortable playing against anybody. And I think that was a testament to the confidence that Bruce had in the way we worked our lines this year. You saw a lot of nights that Sean Crowley was playing against the best players on the other team, and Tampa elevated, whether it's their second line, whether it was their fourth line, doesn't matter. They just felt comfortable who was on the ice in those situations, and they executed. And at times in the series, we didn't. Whether they were pockets of games and situations, a 5-second moment here, Bruce and I were talking about earlier, where, a turnover just went against you. And a lot of times in the Toronto series and sort of throughout the course of the year, we did that to teams. We just didn't do it as well as we had during the course of the year in the Tampa series, and you have to give Tampa credit because they did.
Donnie, you mentioned Jay. Just what do you think of the job that he did this year in Providence?
I thought Jay did a really good job. Again, he had a young group. He was a first-year head coach. Not a tremendous amount of experience, as a coach per se, but certainly a wealth of experience in that league and a great teacher. Had a lot of patience, communicated very well, gave guys an opportunity, worked in consult with John Ferguson and Trent and Spencer and even Kim Brandvold. So those guys got better, every day going to work. They had a great environment. The younger kids, the older, the group of Tommy Cross and Porter and Breen, the veteran leadership down there was outstanding. They had a very successful year. They fell short in their goal from a Calder Cup standpoint. But even that division itself, if you look at the point totals in the division they're in, man, that's kind of staring like our division, or really it's where the NHL is as well. As you're staring at having to make 100 points to make the playoffs in seeming any league now. So it's a tall task, and having those experiences to get in, the winning environment down there has been very good. And I think that the succession speaks for itself as our players that have moved through there and have come up here to play.
Mike?
Don, you've been steadfast, throughout all the other jobs in your career about, the young players, they're the ones who determine when they're ready to play. And this year there's 4, maybe 5 who proved they were. Do you envision, a push from below anywhere similar to that next year? I mean, do you see some guys who are like, this is a good opportunity for them?
Mike, I say that because we all were young players at some point in time, and we all wanted to be told that there was an opportunity if you were good enough as a player. The one thing you can't have is when you start out is experience. So is that held against you? If you're not overripe, so to speak, the whole league has trended towards that. We don't want to put players in positions they're not ready for and they're not able to succeed in, on and off the ice. So the players themselves have to, as I use the term, have to determine it. And but they should be really, really excited, but there is an opportunity there. If they're a better player than the player in front of them, they take the job. If they're not, they have to go and learn what it takes to earn that job. So we have players that had positive years in Providence. Austin Zarnik had a really good year. He could come in and take somebody's job if he's a pending Group 6. Again, I can go through the whole list of players. I'm sure you're referencing whether it's Jacob Zabor or whether it's Senishin, whether it's Frederick coming out of school. We're cognizant of every one of them and sort of where their potential trajectory is. Our exit meetings with Forsbecka Karlsson, as an example, who had a tough injury and missed a stretch down there. They've all made good progress, but when the rubber hits the road in training camp, you got to take somebody's job, and that's what we try to tell them. Prepare for what's in front of you, and the opportunity will be there. There's no absolute certainty, even when you draft a player. Buffalo's really excited. They're that first overall pick. That guy's could be a potential generational player, and I'm sure they're excited about it, and we're excited about our young players. But the player himself will dictate it. The opportunity will be there. Nobody's boxed out. We have depth. Hopefully, we're going to continue to add to that in our organization because you need it.
Dupes, and then Matt.
Don, I don't know if it's an inordinate amount, but there's a lot of coaching jobs and front office jobs out there available. Have you been approached on your staff at all, be it front office or the coaching staff, about openings, permission to talk to guys?
Well, it's public knowledge that John Ferguson has been interviewing at a couple different places. So he's been in the mix. Where those decisions, that's the other team's decision to make. From a coaching standpoint, we have not been approached to this point. So I expect our staffs to stay intact, but that could change at any minute, assuming we give permission, based on whatever the job is.
Matt.
Donnie, at this point, what do you project for David Backes as far as production and role going forward in kind of the second half of his contract?
Hopefully he's going to be healthy. He went through even he yesterday describing it as a pretty difficult year. And I don't know if a lot of players are going to play through some of the things that David played through this year. Speaks to his character. It's a big reason why we went out and got him. And what he was going to offload at times from other players on our hockey club that we all speak about from a core standpoint and the impact they make from a leadership standpoint. It's a lot to lump on players individually to carry that burden. And I think David's done a really good job of coming in and helping in that regard and spreading it around. From a pure production standpoint, a little bit's determined where he plays in the lineup. Nothing against Bruce, but he's putting together the lineup and did a really good job this year. We played him on the power play. His offense comes in spurts, probably more so than what it used to from a volume standpoint. He's also playing with younger players at times that he's helping on and off the ice. So I think we looked at David Backes as providing balance in our locker room on the ice, not just from a pure production standpoint. Do I hope that he becomes a 2050 guy again? Yeah, I absolutely do. I don't know. That's up to him. He hasn't the last 2 years, but at times, if he was healthy, he was trending in that way. But a little bit depends on the usage piece.
Anything else? Kevin, Matt, and Joey, and then we'll wrap up.
I've got a question on McAvoy for Bruce, but before I get there, is it just 3 guys at the Worlds at the moment? Charlie, Pasta,
David Krejci, and David Pastrnak all left yesterday.
Okay, and that's it?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Were there other requests? Or there were?
There were.
Okay. and you denied, or the player didn't want to go, or?
No, more or less the players all decide. You know, we have discussions about where they're at, their own health, their family situations, and then the player himself makes the best determination. You know, it's not, the team doesn't necessarily make that recommendation one way or the other. The player, so we have a, you know, candid discussion about where they're at, and they make the decision. So the players have all made the decision.
And Bruce, on Charlie, the elimination game on Friday, I thought there were, by my eye, 2 or 3 bursts from Charlie that I'd seen some of it during the year, but I thought, wow, he's under pressure here. Team's under pressure. He's rolling it out. Did you see the same thing there, and kind of what's the next stage for him?
Well, I saw it on a lot at the end, and you know, if you remember the play in Game 5 up there where he went around 2 guys and gave it to pass to backdoor in the 3rd period, like that is a high-end play, but also a guy that understands that we needed a goal. And came through at the right, you know, a great moment. So Charlie has the ability to rise up. That's what we've said about him. We saw it last year in the playoffs when he came here, so that hasn't changed. I think it took him a while to get his legs under him, to be quite honest, in the Toronto series after the injury. I think it was tough to get thrown right back in there and realize at that high a pace. But Charlie, I don't have any concerns about that part of his game. You know, for him, it's you know, the consistency factor every night, starting on time, understanding where. When to take his risks and when not to, and as a young guy, he's done a great job with all those things. Again, I think I see nothing but good things out of Charlie going forward. Obviously, this year, a couple of health issues. Get that behind him, and you know, stay healthy. He's going to be a great player for us, and obviously, I don't want to project going forward, but hopefully for many, many years. It's what he brings, and he's well liked by his teammates, very respectful. But yes, he wants to be a difference maker. You saw that at a very young age, and those are qualities that separate him from a lot of guys.
Bruce, I think it's safe to assume that you were pretty happy with the way you divvied up the goaltending this year, and if you could, would you duplicate that allocation next year and going beyond, or do you see maybe even less starts with Tuukka and
no?
And
I think Tuukka. In the exit meeting, felt that he was fresh at the end of the year. That's the goal, is to get him as on his game, healthy as possible going into the playoffs. When we map out his work, that's just over the years we've found that that's a good number to stay within. Just a little shy of that 60. It could tip up against it, maybe a little over, but that's kind of the number, and we were able to do that this year. And he said it himself. He was fresh and ready to go, and he played well for us. So that's the target date. I think a lot of that depends on a little bit of where you are in the standings as the year goes on. There's obviously, second part is the ability of the backup. Can he hang in there and get the job done? And clearly Anton did this year and more. So worked out well in our favor in that regard. So that was a plan we set out to stick to do, and we were able to stick to it because of those two things. And I give Anton a lot of credit for doing his part.
Joy? Donnie, getting back to Mike's earlier question about kind of the next generation coming up, with that said, does it matter to you if you regroup and get a first-round pick this year or not?
Well, obviously you'd like to have multiple picks. When you're left empty-handed on the Friday night, you wonder whether or not, okay, is there a move to be made that you can get back in there? I've had some discussions, so there could be. It's just at what cost? But it hurts. It stings from a projection, from a planning standpoint. There's no question it impacts your organization. So I don't think it's in your best interest to do it repeatedly. And if there's an opportunity, then I'll explore it. So we'll have some discussions about it. Certainly we're preparing like we would have a first-round pick, and having the guys making sure that we're in tune. We go to Buffalo and interview the guys that we felt we would be drafting if we were in those slots, and prepare accordingly.
Good. Thanks, everybody.